There we are. Hi, everyone. Hi. Welcome to day 3 of our daily practice challenge. Today, I want to continue the conversation we had yesterday about overcoming obstacles and really getting into, in a way, continuing the conversation from our day 1 as well, um, on what the reason why is. And really, we're going to take both of those a step further and we're going to talk about what is non negotiable for you and how we use that to overcome obstacles, to get out of our own way, and to show up regularly, understanding a much deeper call as to why. And then we get into the how and the what. So, to get started, I wanted to review kind of what we've talked about this week. Number one, you have your reason why video, which is all about really tapping into what is the reason that brought you here. What is like that part of you, right? That is really calling for moving your body more, maybe getting into mindfulness more, maybe just getting like this deeper connection to yourself. Maybe, oh gosh, there's so many reasons: less stress, maybe supporting your body through chronic illness, maybe just giving yourself something just for you, which can be really nice and delightful. And so we've done our reason why exercise. And yesterday we talked about some of the obstacles that can get in your way and kind of how to get into the habit of daily practice, even with those obstacles. I want to go back to this a little bit, what is an obstacle, and like how do they come up, and how do we work with them, and I want to bring it back specifically because just to show up for this live call, I had like 12 obstacles and I was getting really annoyed because I knew what I wanted to do, I knew how I wanted to do it, I knew where I wanted to be to make it happen, and still so many things showed up in my way. So I thought I would kind of dive into that a little bit, and maybe this will be helpful for you to really kind of dig into the deeper of like why that reason why that the non-negotiables are so important. So uh, let's get into the non-negotiables, and then I'll give you my personal story. So what are your non-negotiables? Now, if you're like me, you probably have this, you might have this like service before self mentality, which is so kind and so sweet and generally like rooted in, a good place, right? We want to care for the people in our lives. We want to care for, our homes, our environments, our workplaces, and that's all really nice and it's good. But the reality is that before self is also something that is really embedded in this uneven power structure system that we have in a long-standing part of our culture. And when we have this uneven power structure where some people are more in service of others than they are of themselves, it creates this false belief that by giving to everyone else, there will still be something left over for you. Um, and gosh, I could get into this and how I've witnessed this in different parts of the world and different, scenarios in my own life. But here's the truth. When the priority is always service before self, right? It's very difficult for you to be able to ever show up for yourself because you will always be putting everything else first. And even when there is space for you, you might be really low on energy, you might be really just burnt out, you might just be wanting just like nothing. Um, and so I want to offer just a different perspective on this service. I would say service of self in order to have service to others. And bear with me on this because I'll walk you through it a little bit. When I want you to think to a time, close your eyes. I want you to think to a time in your life when you were happy, joyful, motivated, expressive. You felt like you were in your element, like you were your fullest self, like you were supported, like you were cared for. I know that you have those moments. We have all had those moments. Sometimes it's easier to go way back in life to feel those moments. But often, if we've ever had, an event we've gone to, or um, you know, a time with friends or family where you were just like in a really good place. And I want you to really go there. And I want you to feel the feelings of that moment. And I want you to take some time to really like tap into that version of you. You can breathe into that space. Like, what were you wearing? Who were you talking with? Who were you with? What was your energy level? How did you feel? And in this, like, really more clear visualization of yourself, I want you to tap into like, what would you have done for anyone else in that moment? Right? I think back to family events. I think back to um, holidays and holiday gatherings where there's a lot of people and a lot of food. And there were always dishes to be done, plates to be put out, plates to be put back, things to be cooked, things to be served. And I can tell you in those events and in those moments, I had no issue, right, helping out and supporting and like helping the whole thing take place. Whether my job was to help with the dishes or to make sure that people were entertained and happy, or to just connect and have conversation with other people in my life. So when we are feeling, you can open your eyes now if you want. When we are feeling in a place of support and joy and kindness and happiness, when we are really feeling that, then it's much easier to show up for other people, right? It is much easier to just do what needs to get done. You have more energy, you have the support, the clarity, the direction to be able to show up and be in service of others. And so when I say service of self, then service of others, what I'm really saying is that when you can take care of you, whether it's your energy level, whether it's your diet, whether it's your movement practice, whether it's meditating regularly, whether it's showing up for yourself, whether it's journaling, whether it's reflecting, whether it's going for walks, whether it's, taking care of your body, getting your hair cut, getting a pedicure, whatever it is that you need to like be in service of self. When you are in service of self, the thing that comes after that is that you are much more able to show up for others. That's just true. It's just true. We sometimes have this fear that somehow if I take too good a care of myself, then I won't want to care about anyone else. I feel like that's a deep rooted fear that I've had in the past. And also, again, I'm going to say, when we're in our joy and when we're in our happiness and when we're in our, best selves, we tend to be able to show up for other people without too much of an issue. So, that being said, when it comes to service of self, what are your non negotiables? What are the things you absolutely, without a question, are going to happen? For many of us, that means getting haircuts. It's a great example of something that is a non negotiable. You're not going to go forever long unless you have really long hair and it's not that important. But if you have short hair, it's haircut day. That's why you're getting this disaster for me. But men, women, our non-binary friends, all of us have hair, and in general, all of us, most of us, make it a priority to care about the hair. So we care about the hair. We probably also eat food every day. So non-negotiable, I'm going to make sure my hair gets cut. I'm going to make sure I eat every day. I'm going to make sure you probably brush your teeth. Maybe wash your face. Maybe you have a facial care routine. There are so many non-negotiables that we already have for our health and wellness. They're already there. And so when we know that we have these habits already, then we can start to build into, okay, let's take it a step further. What are the non-negotiables for how I want to feel every day? What are the non-negotiables for how I want to be able to show up for my life every day? What are the non-negotiables for being in my fullest self and simultaneously also being able to show up at work, at life, in service of others, in service of my roles, in whatever that looks like for you? So, we're going to take a moment right now. If you have a pen and some paper, you can really quickly, I want you to jot down 3 non negotiables for your health and well-being. And these are feelings, non-negotiable feelings. What do you want to feel? Maybe it's managing stress. Maybe it's uh, more mental focus. Maybe it's uh, feeling a little lighter or a little more joyful. Because we know when we have those feelings, we tend to also show up a little bit more. So, what are your non negotiables? And you can share them in the comments here. You can put them below. I would love to know, what is your non negotiable? What is something that is absolutely a feeling that you want, that is so important to you that you're willing to do whatever it takes to get that feeling? And then from there, what can you do to be in support of that non negotiable? For me, I'll give you one non negotiable for me. I need to feel a little light and a little joyful every day. When I feel light and joyful, I show up better for my work. I show up better for my community. I show up better uh, for whatever tasks I need to get done that day. I also show up a lot better for my family. Uh, when I do not have that as an alternative, and this is where we can get into like, what's the alternative if you don't have that? I tend to be really crabby. I tend to not want to do anything, and I tend to really slack in the areas of my life that are important. So, what's your non-negotiable? What's that non-negotiable feeling? And now we're going to take each of the three that you've listed so far, each non-negotiable feeling that you absolutely want to is a priority for you to feel every single day, and you are going to write, what happens if I don't have that? And then I want you to really like take some time to think about that. So if you're watching this as a recording, you can pause, write it down. What happens if you don't have that feeling? And this is where you're going to start to see the truth of why the non-negotiable is so important and why it is so critical that you are able to show up and support and be in service of yourself. Because when those feelings are supported and when your daily habits and practices, which you already have, so we're just building on those, when you already have those and you're building off that and you're adding in this wellness practice for yourself, what happens, right? We avoid the alternatives, but also we are able to show up and be present for what happens when those are met. And so that's your next exercise. What happens when your non negotiable is met? What are you like then? So, again, you can take a moment to write it down, breathe into it, think about it, and make sure that you're really clear on like the truth. I think so easy we can just write something down, right? But can you get into like the truth, the essence of what those non negotiables are? What happens when you have them? And what happens when you don't? Because if you know that information, one, you can't unknow that. You can ignore it, but you can't unknow it. And this is why we do the work that we do, right? Because when we can show up and we can really see what that is, man, it's just kind of amazing what can shift and how quickly that can shift. The self-awareness that gets developed when we do the exercise of becoming aware of how we show up and how that makes us feel and how that makes us present into our lives. So now that we've done our non-negotiables exercise, I wanted to talk a bit about overcoming obstacles because, friend, life is variable. Even when we predictably know what we want to do, when we want to do it, how we want to do it, where we want to do it, what we want to do, even when we know all those things, there's still going to be moments that things come up and we have decision points. Am I going to miss this? What happens if I miss it? What happens if I rearrange and get it in later in the day? What happens if I keep going and I get half of it or 5 minutes of it? And so this is now like us getting a little bit deeper. Obstacles. So today, I knew that I was going to come here and I was going to do this live coaching session. Now, it's school vacation on the week that I'm doing this. My son is home, he's in second grade. So he's at the point where if we left him home for 5 minutes, nothing in the world would change. We know half the neighborhood, everybody's home. It's fine. I don't like leaving him home, and I didn't want to do that. So my husband asked, "Do I have time to go do this thing? What do you have going on tonight?" I said, "I have a thing at 11." And I made an assumption that he understood that I needed to go somewhere and I needed to leave by 10:45. And then he wasn't home. And I'm like, "Where are you? Where are you? Where are you?" So, obstacle one, husband's not here. I have to leave to get to what I'm going to at a certain time. Two, he's not there. And by the time he does get there, I'm late. So now, obstacle number three, I'm annoyed. And I would say that out of all the obstacles that I have, annoyance is probably like my own stuff, my own feelings are like my biggest obstacles that I genuinely overcome every single day. In the feeling of annoyed, it is really hard for me to show up and want to do a live call. I don't want anyone to see me. I don't want to share that energy with you. I don't want to bring the feeling of annoyed into this experience together. Now, with that annoyance, when I'm in the feeling of annoyed, and this is what happens to all of us, this is a state of the brain. So I'm not sharing anything that's unique to me. We all experience this. When I'm in the experience of annoyed slash a little afraid, because I'm like, well, people might be waiting for me and they're probably wondering where I am. So shame, maybe a little shame, a little fear, a little sadness. I'm not able to make it on time. I'm so afraid that people are going to be waiting for me, that they're going to be asking for me, that I'm going to disappoint someone. These are all things that, like go through my head. I finally, husband's home. I rush out the door and I go in the wrong direction. I don't know where I was driving to. I don't know where, but I was so annoyed that I couldn't see through that to be able to show up and go in the correct direction. So I make it here, little turns around, and the parking lot's full. The parking lot is full. It's never been full in all the times I've come here. It's never been full. It's full today. So now I'm going to drive around some more and do a turn, and there's traffic and stoplights and everything else. And then I get here. Take a guess as to how my level of annoyed was from where I started to where I ended up with all those additional obstacles, right? And then I have to park at a meter, and I'm like, well, I don't know if I have any coins for this meter. I find some coins, I put it in the meter, I'm on my way up. Um, all of that is to say that despite all the obstacles, and I would say again, the biggest one was my own feeling of being annoyed at the fact that I had obstacles, I was able to be here. But I didn't just show up in my stuff, in my annoyed self. I was able to take a moment to breathe, to connect, to remember, like, what do I want to do? How do I want to present? What do I want to show up with? And then be here in a way that was just more, I don't know, present, compassionate, caring, attentive. Um, and all of that takes practice. And it's really possible for all of us to have it. This isn't a superpower that I have. There's some people that are way better at it, I would say, than I am. But the way in which we are able to show up better like this is by doing the work of showing up in the first place, being willing to actually let the practice in, which I would say is a whole other conversation to have, and to be in a headspace of this is non-negotiable. This week, one of our members was saying that she was 15 minutes late to a 30-minute class. And that was because her family needed her. And she still showed up and she did 15 minutes of the class. And then she had time to do 15 minutes of something else as well from us, as actually was part of this daily challenge. The whole point is you don't have to show up perfect, that through showing up, you get better at showing up in dynamic situations through having non-negotiables that say, even if I only make it for 15 minutes, even if I only get halfway through, I will still be closer to my goal. I will still be closer to supporting that non-negotiable feeling for myself than if I did not show up at all, right? And there are an infinite number of ways and iterations and variations that can show up for you and be that. The point is to understand what your non-negotiables are. Once you understand your non-negotiables, then lean into it. Discover them. What happens when I do them? What happens when I don't? And then you're going to start to see, well, but like, how do I really want to be showing up in my life? And when you can ask these questions, reflect and be real about them, right? Rather than putting the mask on and being like, everything's fine, we're all fine, I'm good, you're good, let's make sure everybody's okay. Like, take that mask off and be real, because we can all feel it when under the surface you're a little annoyed, right? When you carry that, like, I love sharing my annoyed feelings with other humans. That's like kind of my, it's like my I don't know, base level response. I want everybody to know that I'm annoyed. But like, does that serve anything towards where I want to be and how I want to show up in my life? No, it does not. It doesn't. And this is where the work comes in. This is where the practice comes in. This is where the breath matters. This is where the support and the continuing to show up matters. Now, I said yesterday that today we were going to talk about your practice space. And in some ways we did, right? Because the practice space is the you. It's the environment that is you. Tomorrow we're going to talk about practice space for real. But I needed to have this conversation with you first. And the reason was because, and this is the truth, it doesn't matter how perfect your yoga space is. It doesn't matter if it's custom built solely for the benefit of your yoga practice. It doesn't matter if you have every single prop and crystals and plants and like it was designed by the home yoga space designer. It doesn't matter if it's like, you know, it has this perfect aesthetic that makes you feel more connected to your practice. That space cannot make you show up. But understanding your non-negotiables, understanding your reason why, knowing what you're working towards, and continuing to remind yourself of that will help you to show up. And you know what? That could mean practicing on your kitchen floor. That could mean, like I do, just ducking out, like ducking into a room where there's nobody else, finding a rug and moving my body. It could look like wrapping yourself in blankets, putting on some really relaxing music, and just tuning out for a few minutes. What your practice is going to change every day because you, every single day, are a little different. And every single day, there are different conditions that we're working with. And every single day, what you need is going to shift. The way in which you know that, the way in which you continue to serve that and to grow is by choosing to show up every day in some form, in some fashion. So, with that, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, dear yogi. Have a wonderful practice. Keep showing up. I will be here to guide you, to encourage you, to support you. And tomorrow, I'll be here with some cut hair.